Welcome to Trandy Wisdom, where every story is a living truth, waiting to touch your heart. Today, we return to something the world has almost forgotten: the quiet, boundless beauty of simplicity. In the gentle unfolding of each breath, in the stillness between each heartbeat, lies a wisdom more powerful than all our ambitions. The wisdom of simplicity is not hidden in distant lands or future dreams. It is already here, whispering to you in the silence. Come, walk slowly with us, and remember how rich life becomes when we choose to live simply. 1. Returning to the breath of life, the gentle awakening of simplicity. In the early light of dawn, before the rush of thought, before the clamor of the day's demise, there is a precious space where life simply is. The morning mist hovers like a tender breath over the fields. The earth is silent, but fully alive, and the trees, without striving, reach upward in grace. In this moment, before we name it, before we possess it, life offers itself in its most authentic form: simple, pure, whole. We breathe, and we are alive. This breath, unnoticed most of the time, is the quiet miracle that sustains us from the first cry of birth until the final sigh of death. Yet how often do we truly touch this breath with our full awareness? How often do we honor the simple act of breathing as the sacred thread that weaves us into the fabric of existence? The wisdom of simplicity begins here, in the soft returning to the breath of life. It is not an intellectual understanding, not a philosophical concept we analyze and debate. It is a felt experience, immediate and intimate, available to us in every moment when we choose to stop, to listen, and to be. When we awaken in this morning, we often reach immediately for our devices, our plans, our worries. We rush into the day, carrying the baggage of yesterday's disappointments and tomorrow's anxieties. But what if we paused? What if, instead of hurrying toward the future, we allowed ourselves to simply arrive into the present, carried gently by the river of our own breath? The breath is always now. It is not yesterday's breath, nor tomorrow's. It invites us back into the sacred immediacy of living. By returning to the breath, we return to ourselves, not the constructed self, built of ambition and fear, but the living self, the breathing self, the self that is vast and free. Take a moment, close your eyes, inhale slowly, deeply, feeling the coolness of the air entering your nostrils, traveling down into your lungs, nourishing every cell in your body. Exhale gently, feeling the warmth as life flows outward, releasing what is no longer needed. In this simple act, there is nothing missing. There is no need to become anyone, no need to prove anything. In this breath, you already are. Simplicity, in its truest sense, is not a rejection of the world, but an embracing of it in its naked, wondrous being. To live simply is to live in alignment with what is real. It is to recognize that our deepest fulfillment does not come from adding more layers to our lives, but from peeling them away until only the essential remains. A single mindful breath contains the whole universe: the earth that grows our food, the rain that nourishes the soil, the sun that ripens the fruit. All are present in the miracle of this breath. The breath carries the song of the forest, the sigh of the ocean, the heartbeat of the living earth. When we breathe with awareness, we are not separate. We are intimately woven into the dance of life. It is so tempting to believe that happiness lies in complexity. We chase after possessions, achievements, titles, believing that each new acquisition will bring us closer to satisfaction. But the more we accumulate, the further we drift from the quiet joy that lives in the simple act of being. The more we fill our lives with noise, the harder it becomes to hear the whisper of the heart. Simplicity asks us to trust in what is small, what is ordinary, what is already here. It asks us to look deeply into the cup of tea we hold, to feel the warmth seeping into our palms, to inhale the delicate fragrance rising from its surface. To be fully present with a single sip of tea is to touch the heart of life. When we return to the breath, we practice the art of coming home. We come home to the body, feeling the sensations that anchor us. In the present, we come home to the mind, observing thoughts without clinging or rejecting. We come home to the heart, allowing it to open, to soften, to embrace whatever is arising. In the monastery, when the bell sounds, everyone stops. Whatever we are doing, we lay it aside and return to the breath, washing dishes, writing a letter, sweeping the floor. Each activity becomes an opportunity to reconnect with the source of our beings. The bell is a gentle reminder. You do not need to chase after life. You are already standing in its center. In the world outside, we have few such bells. The demands of work, family, and society pull us outward, scattering our attention, fragmenting our presence. Yet we can carry our own inner bell within us. Every time we remember to breathe consciously, every time we pause to touch the miracle of life in the present moment, we ring that bell. We awaken ourselves. The breath teaches us patience. It cannot be hurried. It moves in its own rhythm, like the tides, like the seasons. When we attune ourselves to the breath, we learn to move with life rather than against it. We learn to trust the natural unfolding of things, to let go of the restless striving that exhausts us. In this letting go, we discover a vast spaciousness within. Simplicity is spaciousness. It is the wide sky uncluttered by clouds of grasping. It is the quiet earth, rich and nourishing, unburdened by the weight of needless desires. There is a kind of joy that arises when we surrender to simplicity. It is not the fleeting pleasure of acquisition, but the deep, steady joy of belonging. We realize we do not need to own the sunrise to be blessed by its light. We do not need to possess the river to be refreshed by its song. We do not need to control the future to be at peace in the present. To breathe is enough. To smile is enough. To take a single step in mindfulness is enough. When we live in this way, each moment becomes a sacred offering. Each act, no matter how small, is infused with care, attention, and depth. Simplicity is not a deprivation, but a celebration of the richness that is already ours. Once we have the eyes to see it, this path of simplicity is not always easy. It requires courage to resist the voices that tell us we must do more, be more, have more. It requires faith to trust in the quiet wisdom of the breath when the world clamors for noise and speed. But as we walk this path, step by mindful step, we find that what we feared losing was never truly needed, and what we truly longed for was always within reach. The simple breath, taken with full awareness, is a revolutionary act. It is a declaration of freedom. It is a return to our original home, a home that was never lost but simply forgotten amidst the clutter of our lives. Close your eyes again. Feel the breath rising and falling like a gentle tide within you. With each inhale, receive the gift of life. With each exhale, release your fears, your grasping, your regrets. Here, in this simple rhythm, you are whole, you are complete. The morning mist lifts, the birds sing, the earth awakens without hurry, without striving. So, too, can we awaken, not through effort, but through gentle returning, again and again, to the breath of life, the first teacher, the constant companion, the sacred bridge between body and spirit. In the embrace of simplicity, we discover that we have always beinged. We are not strangers to this life. We are not exiles. We are intimate participants in the great unfolding of being. And it all begins here, with a single, mindful breath, a breath that asks for nothing but our full attention, a breath that gives everything without holding back. This is the gentle awakening of simplicity. This is the quiet revolution that can heal our lives and the world. 2. Untangling the knots, freeing ourselves from the weight of complexity. There are invisible knots within us, silent tangles that slowly tighten over time. They are not seen with the eyes, but we feel their presence in the heaviness of our hearts, the restlessness of our minds, the subtle weariness that clings to our steps. They are woven from strands of fear, ambition, regret, and desire, twisted together until the simple joy of being becomes a burden too heavy to carry. Every knot is born from our hunger for something outside of ourselves. We grasp at success, love, security, recognition, and when we do not attain them as we wish, or when they inevitably change or slip away, the thread tightens. In our effort to possess and to control, we bind ourselves ever more tightly. What began as a simple longing for happiness becomes a complex web of dissatisfaction and striving. The path of simplicity invites us to recognize these knots, to sit quietly with them without judgment, and to begin the gentle work of unmangling. It is not a work of force or violence. No knot can be undone by pulling harder. The harder we pull, the tighter it becomes. The art of untangling is the art of patient attention, of loving awareness. When we sit with our breath, we can feel where the body is holding tension, the tightness in the chest, the clenching of the jaw, the furrowing of the brow. All speak of knots that have taken root not just in the mind but in the flesh. We breathe into these places, offering them tenderness instead of resistance. We allow the breath to seep gently into the knots, softening them from within. It is important to see that complexity itself is not the enemy. Life is full of complexity. The intricate patterns of a leaf, the vast web of relationships that sustain an ecosystem, the delicate balances of the human communities. Complexity in nature is organic, flowing, arising naturally and dissolving naturally. The complexity that weighs us down is not this living complexity, but the manufactured complexity of our own making, the tangled mass of attachments, fears, and endless wanting. In the monastery, a simple meal is prepared with great care. Rice, a few vegetables, perhaps a small bowl of soup. Each item is cooked slowly, mindfully, with gratitude. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is wasted. This meal is complex in the sense that it involves many conditions: the sun, the rain, the soil, the hands that planted and harvested. But it is simple in its presentation, in its intention. It nourishes without overwhelming. It satisfies without burdening. Our lives, too, can be nourished by this spirit of mindful simplicity. We can learn to distinguish between what is necessary and what is superfluous, between what truly serves our well-being and what merely adds noise and clutter. This discernment is a deep practice. It requires honesty, courage, and a willingness to let go. Often, we are reluctant to let go because we believe that the knots are part of who we are. We identify with our roles, our possessions, our relationships, our achievements. We fear that if we loosen our grip, we will lose ourselves. But the truth is that the self that clings is not our true self. It is a mask we have constructed out of habit and fear. Our true self is vast and spacious, like the sky, capable of containing all things without being entangled by any of them. Simplicity is not about renouncing the world, but about relating to it differently. It is about seeing things clearly, loving them deeply, but not clinging to them. It is about being fully engaged in life while remaining free, like the lotus flower that grows from the mud, yet remains unstained. We can live amidst the world's complexities without being burdened by them. How do we begin to untangle the knots? First, by stopping, by taking a breath, sitting still, and bringing our full presence to whatever is before us. In the silence, the knots become visible. We notice the tightness in our chest when we think about an unresolved conflict. We notice the flutter of anxiety when we imagine losing what we have. We notice the endless churning of thoughts about how we are perceived by others. Each knot reveals itself through the body, through the mind, through the heart. And when it appears, we do not rush to fix it or to judge it. We simply breathe with it, acknowledge it, smile to it. We recognize it as a child of our past experiences, of our human vulnerability. In embracing the knot with compassion, we begin to loosen its hold. Sometimes, untangling means letting go of certain ambitions, possessions, or relationships that no longer nourish us. This letting go is not an act of rejection, but an act of love for ourselves, for others, for life itself. It is a recognition that clinging only perpetuates suffering, while letting go creates space for healing and new growth. At other times, untangling means transforming our relationship to the knots themselves. We may not be able to change a difficult situation, but we can change how we hold it in our hearts. Instead of tightening around it with fear and resentment, we can hold it lightly, tenderly, like a fragile bird in our hands. In doing so, we give ourselves the freedom to respond with wisdom and compassion, rather than reactivity. As we untangle the knots within, we begin to see more clearly the knots that entangle the world around us. The same patterns of fear, greed, and hatred that bind individuals also bind communities and nations. Our personal practice of simplicity and freedom becomes a contribution to the collective healing of the world. We become instruments of peace, not by preaching or imposing, but by embodying the freedom we have discovered within ourselves. There is a deep humility in this work. We realize that we are not separate from the knots. We are not above them. We, too, are participants in the human drama of suffering and awakening. This humility opens the heart to compassion, both for ourselves and for others. To live simply is to live courageously. It is to dare to say no to the endless demands of consumption, competition, and distraction. It is to create spaces of silence and stillness in a noisy, restless world. It is to choose depth over surface, presence over performance, being over having. The untangling of knots is not a one-time event, but a lifelong journey. Knots will arise again and again, as long as we are human. But with each knot we gently loosen. With each breath we take in awareness. We move closer to the heart of freedom. Imagine standing by a river. The water flows effortlessly, finding its way around rocks and fallen branches. It does not cling. It does not resist. It embraces every obstacle, every twist and turn, with fluid grace. Our lives, too, can flow like this river when we stop struggling against the current of what is and allow ourselves to move in harmony with life's natural unmolding. In the end, the practice of untangling is the practice of love. It is the love that says, I see you, not of fear, not of sorrow, not of anger. I see you, and I will not abandon you. I will breathe with you, walk with you, and gently, patiently, help you to loosen and dissolve. In this way, we come to know the great secret, that freedom is not found in running away from life, but in embracing it fully, with open hands and an open heart. With each breath, with each smile, with each step, we untangle a little more. We lighten our load. We return, again and again, to the simple, profound joy of being alive. And so the journey continues, not as a race toward some distant goal, but as a tender, patient unfolding. One breath, one moment, one step at a time. 3. Cultivating the garden within. Simplicity is the true path to freedom and joy. Inside each of us, there is a hidden garden. It is not made of soil and seeds, but of moments, of breath, of awareness. This garden is where our true happiness grows, where the deep peace of life quietly flourishes beyond the noise of the world. Yet for most of us, this inner garden is neglected, overgrown with weeds of worry, trampled by the endless footsteps of ambition, shaded by the towering trees of fear. It waits patiently for our return. The way back to the garden is not difficult. It requires no special tools, no complicated teachings, no distant pilgrimage. It only asks that we stop, that we listen, that we begin again with simplicity. Each breath we take with awareness is a seed planted. Each act of kindness, each moment of gratitude, each step taken in mindfulness is a droplet of water nourishing the roots of our being. Slowly, gently, we bring the garden back to life. In the beginning, we may find it difficult to trust in the simplicity of this work. We have been taught to value the grand, the complex, the extraordinary. We have been taught that happiness must be pursued through achievement, through acquisition, through perfection. But the garden within does not thrive under such conditions. It withers under the harsh sun of striving. It flourishes in the soft rains of presence, the quiet soil of contentment. To cultivate the garden within is to let go of the need for more and to cherish what is already here. It is to look at the simple meal before us and see not a lack, but a miracle. The earth's generosity, the labor of unseen hands, the wonder of nourishment. It is to sit with a friend and offer not advice or solutions, but the rare gift of full attention. It is to walk down a familiar street and see it with new eyes, noticing the play of light on a wall, the song of the wind in the trees, the smile of a stranger passing by. When we live in this way, life itself becomes the garden. Every moment becomes rich with the colors and fragrance of presence. Every action, no matter how small, becomes a cultivation of joy. Washing dishes is no longer a chore, but a meditation. Sweeping the floor is an act of care for the earth. Drinking tea becomes a ceremony of gratitude. There is a beautiful paradox in this. The simpler our lives become, the richer our experience grows. When we free ourselves from the endless demands of consumption and comparison, we discover the immense beauty of the ordinary. A single leaf, trembling in the breeze, can fill us with wonder. A single breath, taken with full awareness, can open the door to boundless peace. Simplicity is not about living with less as a form of punishment or deprivation. It is about making space for what truly matters. It is about clearing away the clutter, both external and internal, so that the seeds of joy have room to sprout. It is about choosing depth over surface, essence over appearance, being over having. In this way, cultivating the garden within becomes an act of deep liberation. We free ourselves from the tyranny of endless wanting, from the burden of endless doing. We step out of the race that leads nowhere and find ourselves already home. We realize that happiness was never something to be chased or achieved. It was always here, quietly waiting for us to notice. There will be days when the garden feels dry, when the weeds seem overwhelming, when the work of tending seems too much. This too is part of the path. We do not cultivate the garden with force or impatience. We cultivate it with patience, with gentleness, with unwavering faith in the small, unseen transformations taking place beneath the surface. Each time we return to the breath, we water the garden. Each time we choose compassion over judgment, we pull a weed. Each time we rest in gratitude, we plant a flower. Slowly, slowly, the landscape of our inner world is transformed. Slowly, slowly, we become people who carry peace with us. Wherever we go, the garden within is not separate from the world around us. As we cultivate simplicity and joy inside, we naturally begin to radiate it outward. Our words become softer, our actions more mindful, our presence more healing. We no longer add to the noise and violence of the world. Instead, we become quiet sanctuaries, places where others can touch peace simply by being near us. This is the true revolution, not one fought with anger or weapons, but one nurtured with tenderness and presence. It is a revolution of the heart, a quiet uprising against the forces of greed, fear, and hatred. By tending our own garden, we help to heal the gardens of others. By living simply and joyfully, we become beacons of hope in a world that has forgotten how to rest. There is no end to this cultivation. A garden is a living thing, ever changing, ever needing care. So too is our inner life. We must water it daily with mindfulness. We must prune away old habits of fear and resentment. We must open ourselves to the changing seasons, to the inevitable losses and renewals of life. But this is not a burden. It is a joy. It is a privilege to be a gardener of the soul, to participate consciously in the great unfolding of life. Every moment we choose presence over distraction, gratitude over complaint, love over fear. We are tending the sacred ground of our being. Imagine walking through a garden at dusk. The air is cool, the earth still warm from the sun. Flowers release their final perfume into the evening breeze. Birds sing their last songs before sleep. In this quiet, golden light, everything feels tender, precious, complete. This is the feeling we can cultivate within ourselves. This is the life that simplicity offers. We need not be perfect gardeners. Even the most beautiful gardens have weeds. Even the most skillful gardeners sometimes forget to water. What matters is that we return again and again with love. What matters is that we do not abandon the garden, even when it is overgrown or barren. We trust in the power of small acts, of humble beginnings, of patient tending. In time, we discover that the garden within us is not separate from who we are. It is not something we have. It is something we are. We are the soil, the seed, the blossom, the fruit. We are the hands that tend, the breath that nourishes, the heart that opens to the beauty of life. Simplicity leads us here, not through striving, but through surrender, not through effort, but through trust. Trust in the wisdom of life. Trust in the healing power of presence. Trust in the goodness that grows when we stop interfering and allow ourselves to simply be. In the end, cultivating the garden within is not about becoming someone different. It is about remembering who we have always been. It is about waking up to the truth that we are already whole, already home, already free. With each breath, each step, each smile, we tend this sacred garden, and as we do, we become part of the great garden of life itself, a garden vast and luminous, rooted in simplicity, flowering in joy, nourished by the boundless love of the earth, the sky, and the human heart. As we take one last mindful breath together, may we remember that simplicity is not something we must chase, but something we must allow. It is the art of coming home to ourselves, the courage to be fully present with what is already enough. When we choose simplicity, we choose freedom. When we live simply, we live deeply, touching the true wonders that were always here, quietly waiting. Thank you for walking this gentle path with Trandy wisdom. Until we meet again, may your life bloom with the quiet joy of simplicity.